1. Got home from work a bit later than usual to realize I'm home alone for the next couple nights. Took care of the dog and decided I'd take a hot bath to soak a recently torn meniscus. Turned the water on and walked to the kitchen to get a drink and realized my roommate had left a note with some cupcakes for me. Grabbed a cupcake, a water, and headed back to the bathroom to turn off the faucet. I set my cupcake and water down on the bench next to my cell phone and had the brilliant idea to smoke a bowl in the tub while my knee loosens up. I quickly grab my pipe and lighter and set them down next to my stuff on the bench. I get in the tub and pack a bowl and take a nice hit and relax, dropping my hand, holding the big lighter into the hot water. TIFU number 1. I quickly realized my fatal error and pulled the lighter out, cursing my stupidity. Knowing that the flint wouldn't spark now that it was wet, I climb back out of the tub and go grab one of those awkward barbecue lighters and return to my previous endeavor. After climbing back in the tub, I grab my pipe and awkwardly return to achieving maximum relaxation. I attempt to smoke the rest of my bowl using this gangly Flex Noodle barbecue lighter. I take another rip and decide Noodle lighter isn't working for me. Setting the pipe down, I resign to using Noodle lighter to light the wet bick. After repeated attempts to keep the bick lit while setting down the noodle, I finally manage to pick my pipe back up to take another hit. I get the pipe to my lips, I accidentally blow out the bick, exhaling. TIFU number 2. Frustrated, I set the pipe down and relight the bick, and pick up my pipe and bring it to my lips. I drop the pipe in the tub. TIFU number 3. I defeatedly fish out my pipe and bowl out of the water, looking resignedly at the bits of weed and ash floating in the water around me. I turn and set the pipe down on the edge of the tub next to my phone and jar of weed, and grab my cupcake in a last-ditch effort to save this whole experience. And in doing so, I proceed to knock my jar of weed into the tub. TIFU number 4. I'm now currently sitting in the bathtub in shame, surrounded by a quarter ounce of weed, broken and ashamed. Wondering if I sit here long enough, will I get high from absorbing through the skin? 2. It's about 12 o'clock and I was sitting in my house casually enjoying a nice game of Dota. And the winds are fucking rip-roaring at my windows, and all of a sudden the power went out for a split second. I instantly gave up hopes of being able to play a full game without disconnecting. Dota games are about 40 minutes. So I decided to go downstairs and get a snack and watch a movie. I don't watch TV ever. I have a really messed up sleep schedule, so there's not much else to do. So I'm browsing on demand and I see Get Out. And I'm like, oh word, I've been waiting to watch this for a while, and now I can see what all the hype's about. This couldn't have worked out any better. Yes, I'm a hipster. I don't like to listen to popular media when it first comes out, so fight me, and shout out to Childish Gambino, if you know, you know. Anyways, back to the story. My house is directly in front of a forest, and the wind is still fucking howling. I don't know if it's raining or snowing, or what, but it's going hard for sure. I'm sitting in my living room, which is directly above my heater, in the basement, and I have baseboards in my house that for some reason decide to go motherfucking ham at night, and used to scare the shit out of me when I was younger. Also, there's plastic sheets blocking every entranceway into my kitchen, and the bar in between my living room and kitchen because we are sanding and painting the wood. Basically looks like a scene from Dexter in my downstairs. So I'm like 20-ish minutes through the movie. Spoilers. After the groundskeeper decides to haul ass at my man, forgot his name, and gets hypnotized, and the power goes out, I'm sitting here on my couch in the pitch black contemplating what the fuck just happened. ASAP Ferg lyrics running through my head about the sunken place, no Instagram or watching TV, and right as the scary thoughts are about to start running through my head, the power goes back on. Cool. I wait a minute, then reboot everything and get started again. I'm really enjoying this movie. It's a lot of subliminal stuff, and it's really keeping my attention to everything. So it gets to the part where all the relatives show up, and he talks to everyone and everything's real sus, but he finds the blind photographer dude. And they're cool and that's relieving, but then we get to Georgina confronting my mans about taking his phone, and she's sketchy as fuck. But I know she's trying to tell him something, and she starts to cry, and then all of a sudden, fucking BAM! The loudest sound of fucking static shoots out of my speaker. Everything turns black. The baseboards start a heavy metal symphony. The plastic sheets start fucking flying everywhere. Mind you, I cannot see, I just hear plastic ripping all around me, and something that sounds like someone digging came from behind me for about 3 seconds. Outside, I'm right next to a window. Now here I am, sitting in the complete fucking darkness, helpless, thinking to myself, is this a message? Am I about to die? I only got to the first mention of the sunken place, but how I was feeling was similar to how my man's falling was. This all seemed too ironic to me, like this was some metaphor. Like everything goes black while I'm watching Get Out, and darkness is what's scaring me. I don't know. Anyways, I'm still in the pitch black for what seems like eternity, but was probably 30 seconds, and I start having a realization that I can't just be sitting in the dark on my couch. I'm not no bitch, and I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight, and it looked like I was playing some type of horror game as the lights flashed right at the plastic sheets separating my kitchen. So I noped out of that real quick and just sat there thinking to myself, please help. All of a sudden the power goes back on and I get a moment to recollect my thoughts and emotions, and I'm like, whew, it's over. I walk over to shut off my TV, and as I'm hitting the power button, bang! The same fucking static noise rocks out of my speaker, and I go fucking flying backwards in fear, and the lights go on and off repeatedly for the next 30 seconds, and I'm just sitting there like, just kill me please. Honestly, just go fast. I'm sorry. Like, I don't know why was I such a little bitch, but I was legit frozen and shitless. The lights finally stabilize for about 15 seconds, and I decide to book it towards my upstairs. I make it to the edge of my kitchen, and I notice on my right, the door to my basement wasn't there, and it was just completely open, getting sanded in the garage. Then bam, the lights go out, and I'm sitting in the middle of the hallway with about 15 feet to my upstairs, and a wide open doorway to my basement stairs next to me. I instantly think to just run as fast as possible and make it upstairs. Little was I fucking thinking, because my stairs were still plasticed off, and I ran straight into a fucking wall of plastic, and it instantly ripped from being taped to the wall and completely wrapped around my body as I slipped and fell on the first step. Now here is the point where I legitimately thought I was going to die. This wasn't like earlier where I was joking to myself and like, how funny it would be type shit. I was currently wrapped in dust-covered plastic on the ground at the bottom of my stairs, with a wide open basement 10 feet behind me, in the pitch black. This was it. This is how I go out. Someone or something is about to come from behind me and take me to wherever to do whatever, and no one will ever know. I'll just be the boy who ran into a fucking plastic wall. I decided I didn't want that to be my life story's ending, so I ripped that shit off my body so fast and ran upstairs to my room where I am currently covered in dust, laying in bed, typing this. If you read this far, you're the real MVP. Typing this was something to keep me occupied while I was sitting in the dark, with the lights going on and off repeatedly. 3. Not today, but 15 or so years ago. I was on a whirlwind business trip, where I would be traveling and flying to multiple states in 2 weeks' time for meetings. I would fly to a location, drive to a meeting, meet, drive to hotel, sleep, repeat. Oftentimes, after a full day of meetings and travel, I would eat a late-night dinner and be back at the hotel around midnight, and have to wake up early to catch another flight. Because of the logistics of this trip, I packed light so that I wouldn't have to check baggage, but still had to wear slacks, button-down shirt, etc. It was getting towards the end of my trip, and I was wore out by the time I got back to my hotel. Since my clothes usually stayed in my luggage, they were wrinkled. To avoid ironing in the AM, I would fire up the shower, hang my clothes on the shower rod, close the door and let the steam do its thing. Well, the hotel I arrived at this stop did not have a shower rod, but rather just a glass shower with glass floor to ceiling. It was around 11:30 p.m. I looked for something to hang my clothes on. I'm sure you see where this is going. And saw the fire sprinkler head. Now I have done this in the past a dozen times before with no issues. This predates the warning signs you see on these now, but anyway, I hung my clothes on the sprinkler head, turned on the hot water and closed the door. I fiddled in my room for a minute to let the steam build, undressed, and got headed for the shower. As soon as I opened the bathroom door, I was met by a tidal wave of shit-brown water gushing down on me. I freaked out. It was coming out so strong I had trouble keeping open at first. The fire alarm started going off and I was panicked. Still didn't put two and two together, and thought that the massive steam I was building up in the shower caused the fire alarm to come on. I know, idiot. I opened the room door and noticed everyone was in the hallway evacuating. By this time, my entire room had 1 inch of water on the floor. Still in my underwear, I grabbed my wallet and neck still and headed for the exit. It was cold outside. I was standing there in my boxers, wet, listening to 100 other guests bitch. It sucked. About this time, the fire department shows up and runs into the building. After 5 minutes or so, the alarms go silent. The firemen go to the front desk attendant to chat. Then the attendant tells everyone they can return to their room, with the exception of 4 room numbers she called out. Those rooms were flooded and could not be occupied. Lucky me, I was one of the 4. She then asked, "Which one of you are Mr. Pito Chueco?" I raised my hand sheepishly. "Okay, Pito, stand by while I reassign these guests to a new room." After she gave the others a new room, it was my turn. At this point, I'm starting to realize what I did, and how much trouble I was in. The manager on duty pulled me aside along with a newly arrived cop. Seeing as how I was covered in brown-black sheen from the dirty pipe water, the cop asks what I was cooking, i.e. meth, in my room. "Nothing, sir." "Well then, what were you smoking?" asked the cop. Once again, nothing. About this time, one of the firemen comes up and solves the mystery, holding my soggy clothes and the coat hanger. Little did I know, newer fire sprinklers have a small glass bulb that breaks when it gets to a certain temperature, or when a coat hanger strikes it. Once it breaks, the valve opens and the fun begins. The older sprinklers I had used in the past were metal and more mechanical in nature, from my understanding, so this issue did not present itself as often with those type of sprinklers. To sum it up, I was wet, all my clothes and my suitcase were wet, I was tired and still had a plane to catch in the AM, and figure out how to resolve the little issue at hand. I asked the manager to get me a new room, and we could sort that out in the AM. She was reluctant, but the cop made a plea for me, so she put me in a room. I hardly slept, washed some clothes in the sink, and used a hairdryer to dry them off. They had my credit card info on file, so I just checked out in the AM and awaiting my punishment. Fast forward 2 to 3 months, I get a bill in the mail for their insurance company for $35,000. Cost of repair and lost revenue during remodel. 4. So last night I was looking at my blender blade. I thought I saw some dirt on it. I was on autopilot at the time and decided I needed a shower. So I walk upstairs to the bathroom, forgetting to put the blender blade down. I put it on the bathroom floor without realizing, and went into the shower. So skip forward to me finished in the shower. I jump out, straight on top of the blender blade. So I get a cut about 5 centimeters long and 3 centimeters deep, 2 inches and just over an inch. So I look down and see a pool of blood gathering. So naturally I start to panic and pace all over the bathroom and upstairs, staining all of the carpets in the process, blood rushing from my foot. After a couple minutes I calmed down from the sight of the blood. Wasn't painful for the whole night, only the morning after. I suspect my body was numbing it. And throw some clothes on after staining a t-shirt with my wonderful A-positive blood and having to get another one. So at this point I'm feeling lightheaded and faint, and lost about a liter and a half of blood. I call a friend who lives nearby to come get me. My exact words, "You need to come get me now, there's blood rushing from my foot, I'm going to die!" I know I said I was calm, but I wasn't that calm. And threw on a pair of dress shoes, the first ones I could find. So I am stood there in a t-shirt, jeans with blood at the cuff, off the right leg, and a grey jacket with a blood stain on the left shoulder from where I picked it up with my bloody hands. From when I first cut it, grabbing my foot. I couldn't find the front door keys, but the back door keys were in the door, so I opened the back door, close it, and jump the garden gate into the street. Now, important information, putting pressure on my foot would make it bleed a lot quite quickly. So here I am after my minor gymnastics, speed limping down the road to meet my friend halfway, and all I can hear is with every step. I meet him at the end of my street. He lived near, but I still expect he broke many speed limits. I get into the car, still in a mild panic and now in shock. He drives me back to his place where he attempts to stop the bleeding and cleans the cut. And I could get a drink and calm down enough to be able to not bleed myself out from speed limping. Our way of keeping our makeshift kitchen roll bandage on is putting a white sock over it. So then we leave for the hospital. We go to A&E and I walk in. Now my right foot has no shoe on, so I walk in and behind me all you can see is a trail of bloody footprints following me. They take my name, all of the other usual things, and I go to the waiting room, still with a trail of bloody footprints behind me. In the waiting room, all the other people there have invisible injuries, internal, swallowed something, or anything else with no visible wound, and here I am, walking in nonchalantly with my blood-soaked sock, leaving a trail of footprints behind me, to which I was stared down by everyone there. An orderly comes in, notices the blood, and tells a nurse to get me a wheelchair so I don't bleed all over their precious floors. Now it's 11:40 p.m. I cut my foot at 10:30 p.m. Queue waiting for an hour, and I get an initial examination, and once they decided I wasn't about to drop dead, they booked an x-ray to see if there were any metal fragments in there, and replaced my bloody sock and kitchen roll bandage with an actual gauze, and enough bandage so it couldn't bleed through. Queue waiting until 3 in the morning. So then I go and get the x-ray. To get to the x-ray room, you have to go through a separate A&E. There's two, one for injuries that aren't that serious, and one for really serious ones. I was in the former. So I get the x-ray and they say nothing, so I assume it's fine. Back to the waiting room until 4:30 in the morning. So by this point I've lost about a little over 1.5 liters of blood by my own estimates. I'm finally taken to get my foot fixed after 6 hours. So I get some butterfly stitches and more bandages. I get told I can't put pressure on it or it will start bleeding again, so they don't even give me a crutch to walk with. Friend had one lying about for some reason, though, so it was fine. So I leave the hospital and get home. Friend leaves, and I pass out on the sofa. Then the next morning I woke up. I say next morning, I got back at 5 in the morning and thought, you know what would make a great TIFU? And here we are. 5. This happened about 45 minutes ago. For Christmas, my wife had bought me an Apple Watch. By now, I thought I knew all of the features and such. So tonight, as we're having sex, the top of my left hand was pushing in the button on the side of the watch, which in pure Apple fashion is the one physical thing on the watch used for several functions. So we're going at it, and I feel my watch vibrate a few times in rapid succession. Thinking nothing of it, I ignore it and keep going. All of a sudden, I hear a voice coming from my watch. 911 operator, please state the nature of your emergency. I quickly tell the operator that I mistakenly dialed and apologized. Then both my and my wife's phones started buzzing with calls and texts from concerned family members. I remember when I had bought my phone that I entered an emergency contact list, medications, health problems, allergies, etc. Aside from calling 911, it sent out not only a generic alert message saying that I had contacted emergency services to my entire list of emergency contacts, but it sent a map of my location as well. My father is really worried and calls a few times in a row. Mind you, I'm 40, but he worries a lot. So I call him back quickly, still out of breath, and tell him everything is fine and that I mistakenly had my watch send out the alert. He's still really skeptical and wants me to call him in the morning. One of my brothers was on the list, but a simple text put him at ease. Then I text my mother and explained that I sent the alert accidentally. After going back and forth with her for several minutes, she calms down and I think the whole thing is done with. I go to the app that controls the watch and turn off the emergency alert feature. Texts start rolling in again. It has sent out another alert with an updated location stating that EMS would be at my location within minutes. I finally find on the watch where to cancel the active alert, and my phone stops going off. I text everyone again, saying to disregard the message. My stepmother calls my wife to make sure everything is okay, since I was out of breath when I talked to my father. My wife explains that we were having sex and that I had accidentally activated the alert. She was like, "Oh, okay, that makes sense now. Carry on then." A few minutes later, I get a text from my father saying he's relieved that everything is okay. Needless to say, the mood is lost at this point. I'm now dressed, sitting in our living room in case the police or fire department decide to make a wellness visit. I'd have a shot of liquor to chill a little, but answering the door with alcohol in my breath would probably be a bad idea and guarantee a longer visit. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 5 True Embarrassing Stories, episode 68. Thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Okay, I'm going to keep this brief outro, as I have been the past few weeks, so I hope you all have a nice weekend, whatever you may be doing, and if you're working, your next day off comes soon. I'm hoping to get the Q&A edited sometime today, so I'm going to head off and get the rest of this done. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.